to report to us on the Belt and Road Initiative as a global development strategy.
You can see the title there, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Title of my presentation, China's Belt and Road Initiative, A New Direction for Mankind. Future, mankind's future. The world and humanity as a whole is currently standing at a crossroads, faced with the choice of strategic and global dimensions. What kind of future policy directions do we embrace? On the one side is the old geopolitical order dividing the world according to power politics, suspicion, conflicting national interests, and empire building, an order leading to conflicts and even potentially world war. However, on the other side is the Belt and Road Initiative, which was launched by China's President Xi Jinping in September 2013, exactly 5 years ago. I'm going to, although the Belt and Road Initiative originated in China, it is not solely for China, but is rather a global development perspective. And we see on the map the kind of vision that this entails for the world as it is, and potentially the world that it can be, with connectivity through even all of the major continents and even eventually down into Australia. This is a global idea, global strategy. Now the speech, I will read briefly just a quote from President Xi Jinping when he delivered the speech which His Excellency was present at in Nazarbayev University in Astana in September 2013. And this, I think, captures the spirit of what the Belt and Road Initiative is in reality. Over 2,100 years ago, during China's Han Dynasty, a Chinese envoy, Qian Qin, was sent to Central Asia twice on a mission of peace and friendship. His journeys opened the door to friendly contacts between China and Central Asian countries, as well as the Silk Road linking East and West Asia and Europe. Through the millennia, the people of various countries along the ancient Silk Road have jointly written a chapter of friendship that is passed on to this very day. The over 2,000 years history of exchange demonstrates that on the basis of solidarity, mutual trust, equality, inclusiveness, mutual learning, and win-win cooperation, countries of different races, beliefs, and cultural backgrounds are fully capable of sharing peace and development. This is the valuable inspiration we have drawn from the ancient Silk Road. The clearly stated purpose of the BRI is a long-term global development strategy, one of connectivity and one in which no corner of this planet would be left in poverty. or lacking in basic infrastructure. And this is the kind of vision, including what one thinks about in terms of infrastructure investments, modern water management, advanced agricultural systems, transportation, networks, fast trains, advanced energy and power systems, including nuclear technology and modern housing units and commercial enterprises. That is the basic physical economic requirements for a dignified human existence. This is a historic endeavor for mankind, something which has never before in the human history been achieved on such a scale, on a global scale. Yet already the BRI is transforming the face of Asia, not only in China itself, but the Koreas, both North and South, Japan, Russia, South Asia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Laos, Central Asia, naturally Kazakhstan and Pakistan are aligning themselves with the BRI. This is over 70 countries that have joined and signed memorandum of agreements working with the BRI in the 5 years since the BRI was launched. And it is now providing an estimated, as Ambassador had referred, $5 trillion in trade. 40% of the $16 trillion that is annual, total annual trade in the world is in goods, worldwide goods that are connected to the BRI. 60% of the growth in that world trade, along with electrical power, water supplies, communication, new railroads, poverty and reduction programs. So President Xi Jinping referred to this plan in a very historic speech at the United Nations in 2017, where he spoke about a community of shared future for mankind. And I think you can read, we should build a world of common prosperity through win-win cooperation. Development is the top priority for all countries. Instead of beggaring their neighbors, countries should stick together like passengers in the same boat. We should seize the historic opportunity presented by new scientific and technological revolution and industrial transformation, and further unleash productivity and creativity. At the recent forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit in Beijing, President Xi Jinping delivered a keynote speech entitled, "Walk Together Towards Prosperity." Speaking on behalf of as the chairman of the African Union, President Paul Kagame of Rwanda expressed the will of Africa very clearly in this quote: "Africa wishes to be a full and integral part of the Belt and Road Initiative." In addition, at the very beginning of the summit, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, the African co-chairman of FOAC, Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, refuted the false accusations of the Western as well as the Swedish news media about a new colonialism from China, or a so-called debt trap. And this is a quote from President Ramaphosa at this conference. In the values that it promotes and the impact that it has on African countries, FOAC refutes the view that a new colonialism is taking hold in Africa, as our detractors would have us believe. It is premised on the African Union's Agenda 2063, a vision that has been crafted in Africa and by Africans. It is a vision of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the international arena. Ramaphosa also praised the BRI in the following statement: "Why should we support it? Because we are confident that this initiative will effectively complement the works of Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, will reduce the costs and increase the volume of trade between Africa and China. It will encourage the development of Africa's infrastructure, a critical requirement for meaningful regional and continental integration," unquote. The BRI development perspective is directly in line with the UN 2030 agenda. It is in line with the agenda of 2063 of the African Union. Here you see a vision of Africa in the coming 50 years. A vision of integration, modernization, a vision of high-speed trains connecting all the African capitals, trans-African highways expanded, a space program, energy and electricity, and future science, a scientific future for the young people. Unfortunately, right now here in Sweden, as many of the EU countries and the United States, the vision of the future is being met with suspicion and even hostility. These are just the sample of the kind of statements in which, in this particular article, China is referred to, or the Belt and Road, as tentacles that are spreading across the world. This has nothing to do with any of the statements or the ideas which the Belt and Road was founded upon or is intending to be. So, with such a picture of global connectivity and economic development, with the intent to eliminate poverty worldwide, what is it that constitutes this opposition to such a vision here in Sweden and generally in the West? Well, in fact, it's an old colonial or neo-colonial financial power structure here in the West, which is centered on the old British Empire, London, Wall Street, who have a different idea, a different agenda. It's an old game of what was called divide and conquer, that was put forward by the founder of geopolitics, Halford Mackinder, in the turn of the century, and was the basis upon which 2 world wars were fought. It has to do with zero-sum games. It has to do with the idea of winner take all. It has the idea of might makes right. Now, according to that type of geopolitical mentality, the idea to control the world by dividing it, East versus West, or West versus East, or as Mackinder's geopolitical ally put it in a famous quote, "East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet." Rudyard Kipling. It's still this underlying thought process which is influencing the invention and spreading the myth and suspicion that China seeks to become a new empire. This, unfortunately, is the reason, and it's the same reason to this day, why no major Swedish newspaper or TV or radio has reported or published any of the major speeches about the BRI by President Xi Jinping. Nor has it ever reported in depth the recent BRICS conference in South Africa, which major leaders Xi Jinping, President Putin, among many others, participated in, or what I went through the FOAC summit meeting in Beijing. So in reality, the general Swedish public has been kept virtually completely in the dark on these facts. So if there is a question of press censorship that people want to complain about, I think they should first check out what's going on in their own backyard before they start pointing the fingers otherwards. The time has come to educate and enlighten the Swedish population, and eventually even the world population, to the truth about the BRI. That's why we formed the BRICS. We intend to, in addition, to help small and medium-sized Swedish businesses to both understand the BRICS and to facilitate productive business ventures together with China and other countries working in the BRI. Up to now, there has been no or very limited positive response to the BRI within decision-making circles here in Sweden. Yet, if Sweden would remember its own history, that it went from being a very poor pre-industrial society over 100 years ago to a modern, so-called wealthy industrialized nation, through increases in productivity of the labor force by innovative technological and scientific development. Precisely what the Belt and Road is all about, increasing productivity. It would be in line with this excellent type of entrepreneurial tradition that once existed here in Sweden and could easily be stimulated again, that we should join hands with the BRI. It is our hope and our mission that this will happen. I will close with a final short quote from a recent BRI symposium where President Xi Jinping underlined the importance of the BRI as the basis of a new type of global governance. We must, quote, we must have a strategic vision and establish a global outlook. We must have a sense of risk and a sense of history. And we must have a sense of historic responsibility and opportunity to work hard in this century of change. Building a community of human destiny with one belt and one road as a platform for practice is proposed from the perspective of China's reform and opening up long-term development. Building the Belt and Road is not only a means of economic cooperation, but it's also an important way to improve global development model and global governments and promote healthy and peaceful relations among nations.